Hello there, it's Andrea Hallwegner, registered dietitian and CEO of Health Stand Nutrition. We're back with more good stuff for healthy eating advice today, and we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is how to influence other people's eating habits without them actually even knowing it. This is a big win, especially if you've got a significant other, a partner, a kid, maybe an adult kid living with you at home as they're back from school this summer. It allows you the ability to be able to ease in and influence their nutrition patterns without them really knowing and experiencing nagging from you. So if you've been feeling like you're the food police and struggling to know just how do I actually help a family member that's not as engaged in wellness, this session is absolutely for you. So you're going to notice in the notes right beside this video there, I've left a link to the full sort of overall key concepts that you can read about related to this segment. And if you're finding this information helpful, I'd love you to share it on your feed so we can spread the word on how to be a little bit more sneaky about getting healthy eating going in your family a little bit more seamlessly and maybe less painfully. So what I want to dig into today, I'll just grab my notes here, is first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what the sales and marketing people refer to as the term nudging, and why I think that's so important for us in the health industry to pull in to everyday ways that we sort of encourage healthy eating advice. Because I don't think there's many people that don't realize, hey, I shouldn't be eating a ton of junk food, or I probably should eat more fruits and vegetables. I think, at least for our clients, people know that. But when they're not doing that, we have to think creatively of how do we move people from feeling stuck in some of their patterns and maybe moving them forward in a much more seamless, easier to manage way. So that's why I love this concept of nudging. And so here's what the sales and marketers kind of think about when they think about the term nudging. It involves making an item look appealing or easy to grab. The key is not making the particular nudge that we're going to talk about so subtle that they don't get it and they don't influence anything related to what they're eating, but also not so forceful that, again, now we're just nagging and they get that we're trying to influence their eating behaviors, and they are totally repelled and totally disengaged with whatever we're suggesting. And so that's what nudging is all about, is that subtle way we can influence our behaviors when it comes to our food choices without really feeling like we're going to be deprived, or it's going to be difficult, or we're having to be forced to do something we really don't want to be doing. So I know on a personal level, I have personally found this quite interesting to do a little testing. So my husband is not watching this video, but he has been subjected to some nutrition nudging in our home without him least acknowledging it. I can think of a really very vivid time when my husband, who does quite a bit of cycling, was out for a bike ride, came in, he was dripping in sweat, absolutely ravenous, looking for something to eat. And my husband is a chipaholic, absolutely adores chips. And I know he went straight for the pantry looking for something savory and salty, carb rich after that long bike ride he'd been on. And of course, what he found was the pantry didn't have any potato chips. And so he closed that and then proceeded to sort of look around in the fridge to see what else he could get his hands on. And because in the fridge, right at pretty much eye level, there was a plate of raw veggies and dip there. Yeah, probably maybe not his top choice, but because it was prepped ready and easy for him to sort of grab and he saw it, we talk about this as the seafood diet, because he saw it, he grabbed the plate, and you can imagine he devoured a lot of raw veggies, and that took the edge off before we were moving into our supper meal shortly after that. And so I know if chips were stocked into the pantry, probably a family-sized bag of potato chips could come in, but instead, healthier option was just there, nudging him to take action on taking down a good plate of veggies before supper time. So I'm hoping that as we explore some nutrition nudging tactics, and I've got 2 of them for you here, that you can think about, like, how could I use this within my own family, with a really stubborn spouse, maybe with a picky eater, and just see what you might be able to do to really get the ball rolling. If you're sort of the nutrition gatekeeper or the health advocate of the house, you're going to find this segment maybe more relevant and helpful. So there's two things that I want to cover when we're thinking about nutrition nudging. And the first one is what we call the pleasure principle. So again, I always love looking at the research in other areas and other fields, and then being able to pull in that research and really spin it with how we can really think about doing things in the health and wellness field. And so the concept of the pleasure principle is a psychology-based principle. And what the pleasure principle really has to say is that we're wired to seek pleasure. We absolutely repel pain. And I think if you think about anything in your life, we're always going to try and take the path of least resistance. The things that are just more enjoyable, easier, that don't require sacrifice or something difficult are always going to be that much more appealing. And this is one of the reasons nutrition can be so hard when it comes to why we're stuck in taking steps forward to be able to move forward with change. If you can think about expecting a really unmotivated family member to suddenly decide to chop up raw vegetables and put them in their lunch, or if you think about someone that's really not a morning person, they really dislike breakfast, maybe they're struggling with their weight. We know that breakfast is such an important way to kickstart that metabolism and get you less likely to overeat later in the day. But if you've got a significant other in your house that is not keen on breakfast, expecting them to wake up earlier when they're not a morning person and do that behavior is a big ask. And again, if they're not engaged in health and wellness, this is where you, as the health and wellness gatekeeper of the house, if you're motivated to try and help them, there's definitely some ways we can get them to take action. It just takes a little bit more work, and you're not going to like what I'll have to say. But yes, if we chop up the vegetables and literally maybe we put little containers for every day of the week for lunch, they might actually get packed and grabbed. Or if you were making your own breakfast and made an extra one, something appealing that you know that family member might actually eat, and it was just sitting there ready to go when your not morning person significant other wakes up, you may find that simply because it's the path of least resistance, they don't have to decide, think about it, it's ready, even if they're not that hungry, because it's there, they may actually take action on getting that healthy breakfast in. So if you can remove a barrier in terms of what we know about the pleasure principle, we know that you're going to have a heck of a lot more success getting your family member to eat some of these healthier options than really kind of nagging them all the time to do it. So it's kind of a waste of energy. We've all been there. We've done that. It doesn't really work. And so I'd rather you spend your energy on actually just doing some of the work to really help them forward. And some of you will say, Andrea, I am not doing that. And that's totally okay. But I want to give you the research on what we do know actually can really help move people forward with change. So if you really want to nudge your partner or maybe adult kid or teenager forward, these little pieces of what you're already doing that probably don't take a heck of a lot more time to do for an extra person because you're doing it for yourself anyways, is probably going to be the difference between getting them going and being stuck at stop. So that's the first piece, is understanding that pleasure path or that pleasure principle and how we can help people remove some of those barriers in that path of looking for pleasure and repelling pain and resistance. So the same thing can actually work when we think about this pleasure principle when it comes to junk food. So if you have a total junk food addicted teenager or spouse in your home, expecting them to come through the door after school or work and take a look in the fridge drawer and try and find the hidden bag of fruits and veggies that might be hiding in there, when the first thing that they can see on your counter is a jar of cookies, you can bet, based on the seafood diet again, the visual cue of seeing something super convenient, super easy, something super delicious, and when our energy and our overall blood sugars are dropping, we're going to be looking for carbs. We're going to look for sweet and savory things first. And so expecting them to go into the fridge drawer and chop up the apple, pear, watermelon, grab a carrot and peel it, forget it. It's not going to happen. And so again, if you want to nudge them forward, what you want to think about is, how do I just slice up the whole watermelon so the first thing they see in the fridge is the sliced watermelon wedges that they just can grab. And then again, I would take those highly convenient packaged processed foods right out of sight. So I wouldn't have a cookie jar on the counter. Not because I don't want you to eat cookies, but because if we see them, we want to eat more of them than probably if they're tucked away hidden and the healthier options are at the forefront. So that's what we're talking about, is how do we cue and trigger people in a visual perspective to really get them nudged forward with some of the healthy things we want to do here. I'm also really kind of sometimes surprised. We see clients and different family dynamics, spouse disputes, all sorts of things in here, where we've got one person super engaged in wellness and we have the other person that's like crossing their arms and totally not keen on making any changes. And sometimes I'm surprised by the fact that the person that's kind of got their health and wellness in check, and maybe they're not an emotional eater, they're not subject to significant cravings or eating down the house in their favorite kind of comfort foods, they'll sometimes find it so surprising and frustrating when their significant other is struggling there and that they can't somehow have the willpower not to eat the entire bag of cookies or bag of potato chips if they're stashed in the house. And so if you are one of these health and wellness geeks that are pretty good about not overdoing quantities, what I want you to do is just acknowledge that the vast majority of people, when we're talking about those really delicious favorite soulful foods we choose for taste, often find the end point is the entire bag. It's not usually a small handful like it might be for you. So just be super sensitive that we want to set people up for success in your household. So if you've got someone that's really struggling with portion size management of hard to manage foods, really just choose to intentionally buy much smaller portions. Or what works in our house, because I'm the chocoholic dietitian and my husband's the chipaholic, is honestly, we do better not stashing vast, huge, large quantities of those foods because we just know we're going to eat way more of them. But that doesn't mean we're going to necessarily restrict them and never eat them either. That's not what I want you to hear. What I want you to think about is just, how do I remove some of that, stuff in my pantry that is just really difficult to manage? And when we have a significant chip craving, or when there's a very large day that has to have chocolate in it, just go out and buy a single serving versus the family size 2-pack from Costco that we know usually results in overconsumption for most people. So second piece, so we've talked about the nutrition nudging here. Love to know, for those of you watching live, or those of you, we get most of our viewers coming and watching a replay, I would love to hear from you in the comments about your experience with how you inspire other people in your life that maybe you're at the healthiest eater. What are some tactics and strategies and sneaky tricks, or maybe some blatantly obvious ones that they know are healthier options that are working for you in your family to inspire better habits? So I'd love to know in the comments there if you've got any tips and strategies that are working in your home to get everybody moving healthier. So just let me know in the comments if you got anything there. Always keen to hear what's working for other people as well. So we talked about the first part here in nutrition nudging is really understanding the pleasure principle. The second sort of piece that I want to talk about here is what I call variety triggers. And so again, I'm going to draw on some research here from the food psychology area of research, and that is what we call sensory specific satiety. And sensory specific satiety means that our senses, these are our taste, our smell, our sight, they get really overwhelmed and numbed the more repetition that we experience. And this means that although it's going to be cheaper for you to buy, let's say, a 10-pound bag of oranges this week, probably when you're trying to get your family to eat more fruit, this means they're probably going to eat less fruit this week than if you had 6 different types of fruit in your fruit bowl on the counter. And that's because of sensory specific satiety. So the way you can kind of easily remember is that pretty much we're after variety here. So the more variety, the more we eat. And so when we're trying to trigger eating patterns of getting more of the good stuff into our diet, these are your fruits and veggies, we want to make sure you've got a ton of variety in your house. And the easiest example I can get you to think about when we're thinking about sensory specific satiety in action is what happens when people go into a buffet line. And so because there's more variety, there's more likelihood that people are going to eat more than if the buffet line only had 3 containers in it. You're not necessarily going to eat that much. But when there's like 20 different options, our senses and our brain get really excited by all that variety, and we just feel the need to taste and try a whole bunch of different things, which typically leads to eating more of it. And so we can use that psychology research in what we're thinking about when it comes to fruits and veggies, because the more variety you have of those in your home, fresh, frozen, some canned when we're talking about stewed tomatoes, salsas, some dried fruits, those types of things, more salads, the more variety and options that you've got, the much more likelihood we're going to get people to eat more. So one of the things that I like to encourage people to use is what I call the 2x2 rule, and that's having 2 different types of vegetables twice a day. And this ensures that we've got a few different opportunities to get your portions in of veggies, and it also makes sure that we've got some additional variety built in. So let me give you an example of the 2x2 rule. So let's say, for example, you had sliced cucumbers in your lunch, and then you had a few, I don't know, maybe some sort of a leftover stir fry in your lunch today. So the stir fry veggies will give one aspect, and there's probably even more types of veggies in there than maybe just broccoli, let's say. And the second would be that cucumber. So we've got a couple of veggies built in for variety there, because I know you're going to eat more of them than if you just had cucumbers alone in your lunch, or if you just had stir fried veggies in your lunch. We're going to eat more when there's more variety. So that might be one thing you do for lunch, or for example, at supper, I always encourage people to either do some sort of a salad or some sort of a raw vegetable, or some sort of a side dish that includes vegetables. It could be just as simple as slicing up some tomatoes. It doesn't have to be time consuming. But if you have that raw element there, or the salad element there, and then your second vegetable is some sort of a cooked vegetable, grilled or steamed or roasted into the oven, then again, we've got that variety built in. And again, I know you're going to eat more vegetables if you had a spinach salad tonight and you had steamed carrots and peas than if you just had steamed peas. I think we can all agree with that. So use sensory specific satiety, aka more variety, to be able to trigger your family to eat more of the good stuff in your house. Now, on the opposite side of it, we can certainly use this for things that might be overconsumed, that might be still like healthy in your house, but maybe are being overconsumed at the dinner table. So let me give you an example. We have a lot of clients that love pasta, they love garlic toast, and my suggestion would be never have those things on the same day. Don't give them up, but make sure we're offering 1 grain or starch at a time, because how many of us would actually eat less garlic toast or less pasta because we're going to have a little bit of both? We're probably just going to end up eating more grains and starches there than we probably need at a time than if we just had one or the other. So at our house, when it's pasta night, it's just pasta, some sort of whether it's a tomato meat sauce or seafood in there. And then we have, again, a second veggie built in, big plate of raw veggies and dip, and big plate of salad with that type of meal. And we save our garlic toast for the days when we're going to do a big, beautiful sort of salad-based theme. So maybe a grilled chicken Caesar salad with garlic toast on the side. This way, you're never giving up anything, but you're really just being mindful about not doubling up on 2 starches at one meal, and really just being intentional about managing portion size there. So again, that's another example of sensory specific satiety at work. The more variety we have, the more we tend to eat. So figure out, what do I need to eat a little more of? And what do I nudge my family to eat more of? And how do I add more variety? And then in things that we're challenged in terms of portion sizes, how do I intentionally kind of offer not as much variety there so I can really frame the choices at my supper dinner table, for example? So would love to know in the comments what you think about this concept of nutrition nudging and whether this would work, or if you're already using some of these strategies and didn't even know there was a formal word for it, or if you've got any other tips and tricks for what you do to inspire your family members to eat better, and maybe they're not as engaged in wellness as you are. Love to know in the comments if you've got some good stuff there. And if you found this segment helpful, I would love to see you share it on your page. So like the segment, share this, so more people can kind of be aware that you can have a little bit of fun with nutrition without nagging people to get there. And I wanted to invite you as well at the bottom of the link that I've shared with you where you can grab all of the different notes related to this segment. You're also going to see a brand new little resource that we've created here at HealthStand Nutrition. It is titled 33 Top Summer Recipes by Canadian Dietitians. I reached out to my colleagues across the country and asked them, hey, what are some of your favorite recipe ideas? And we put together a little resource of 33 cool ideas to inspire you for just some new things to try as the summer temperatures start heating up. So if you'd like a copy of that, go on over to the link I've provided in the comments there, and you can grab yourself a copy of that, those recipe ideas, and of course the full summary of the key concepts I went through today on our video. So thanks so much for watching. I'm Andrea Hallwagner, registered dietitian and CEO of HealthStand Nutrition. If we can give you a hand with anything on your family's nutrition or on a personal level for any health and wellness-based issue or family meal planning in general, you can certainly just give me a call. We can book a time and chat about what's going on, and then I can recommend who on our team is the best dietitian for your needs. So signing off for now, and we will see you next time, same place next week for more healthy eating advice. So thanks again for watching.